What was the effect of the automobile on American society? By Samuel Santopietro. The invention and mass production of the automobile in the 1920s affected almost every aspect of life in the United States. The booming automotive industry also hugely impacted the American economy, and Henry Ford's assembly line revolutionized the entire manufacturing industry. Throughout the course of this presentation, I'll attempt to explain the massive impact the automobile had on early 20th century life. During the 1920s, the economy in the United States was booming. People's spendable income increased, allowing them to purchase more goods, i.e., automobiles. This allowed companies to earn higher profits. Companies then expanded to be able to hire more people. The impact of the car on American industry. Henry Ford is probably the most well-known name in the early American automobile industry. By advancing automobile production using the assembly line and factory system, which reduced the time and cost required to build automobiles, he helped cars become the most common form of transportation in our nation. Ford's assembly line method of production greatly minimized the amount of time needed and manpower needed to produce automobiles. His method gave each worker one or two small tasks to perform before moving the automobile down the line to the next worker who performed the next task and then the next worker and so on. Basically, each worker became extremely proficient at performing his task very quickly, and overall production time decreased and the cost of production decreased as well, allowing vehicles to become more affordable and allowing manufacturing to become more efficient. This is a picture of the assembly line at a Ford plant in 1913. This is a assembly line at the Ford plant in 1923. This is the assembly line at the Ford plant in 1928. As cars became more popular, more people were buying them, and the assembly line cut down on the time and the cost required to build the automobile. Ford started paying his workers more. So workers at the Ford plant typically made around $5 a day, whereas workers at other factories usually made only around $2 a day. So working at the Ford plant was a pretty prestigious job and something that everyone would want to do at that time. The efficiency of the assembly line helped decrease the cost of automobiles. For example, the purchase price of a Model T in 1909 was $850. In 1916, you could purchase a Model T for $360. By 1924, the price dropped to $290. These lower prices made the cars more available to everyone, and by the mid 1920s, most every family in America had at least one vehicle. In the 1920s, the American car culture began to develop. People were able to easily travel out of the city and into the country, and people from the country were able to travel into the city to do things like shopping. The suburbs grew as people moved out of smaller homes in the city to larger dwellings in suburban areas just outside the city. There's pictures of campers in Seattle Park, Washington, from sometime from the year 1918 to 1920. Because cars were less expensive, people had more free time, many people started taking car camping vacations. The national parks were a very popular destination for car camping trips. This is a picture of a family car from the early 1920s that people would often use for traveling, vacations, going to church, getting back and forth to work, just getting around wherever they needed to go. Many other industries grew as a result of the booming automotive industry. The rubber industry. People needed tires for their cars, so vulcanized rubber was very in demand. Oil and gasoline were needed to keep cars on the road and running. Glass was needed for windshields and windows. Paint was needed to paint automobiles as well as to paint the margins on the road. Steel was needed in the building of automobiles. Construction happened all across the nation as new improved roads and bridges were built using concrete and cement. Housing. New larger homes were being built in the suburbs. Fast food restaurants began to pop up across the country to provide teens and people traveling with a place to get something to eat quick and easy. There were drive-in theaters that popped up as entertainment across the nation. Hotels popped up as a place to stop. Because of the automobile, courtship rituals changed. No longer did teens have to sit in the girls' parlor or on a front porch. Instead, boys would pick up girls for dances and date nights. Drive-in theaters and fast food restaurants or food stands were popular date night destinations. Cars gave teens more freedom and more ability to be alone with their date. Some teens got into trouble for joyriding, stealing cars, or drinking and driving. Some people worried that the moral standards were not being upheld because the cars gave teens too much freedom. Cars changed women's role in society. Women were no longer expected to just stay at home and take care of the home and cleaning and doing other things around the house. Women now had the freedom to go into town, shop for the things that their family might need or want. And eventually women were allowed to have jobs outside the home, and today women can do anything that a man can do. Unfortunately, there were some negative effects of the automotive boom. Traffic jams often occurred in cities, especially at times when many people were on the road. For some young people, cars gave them too much freedom. This caused joyriding, drinking, and driving, teenage pregnancy, and car accidents to become common occurrences. There was a decline in railroad travel, as people would rather take their vehicles to travel on their own time at their own pace. Fewer people traveled by rail. There's also a decline in developing more efficient public transit in urban areas because fewer people were using the public transit that already existed, and things like electric rail and trolley lines weren't being expanded upon. In fact, many cities even closed them down. It's pictures of a traffic jam in LA in the 1920s and a car accident in the 1920s. Overall, the age of the automobile was a positive thing for our nation. It helped boost the economy. Industries like oil, paint, rubber, tire, the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, and all other travel industries benefited greatly from the age of the automobile. The automotive boom shifted the way that factories were run throughout the country. Henry Ford's assembly line made everything much more efficient. The widespread availability of automobiles gave people the freedom to travel where they wanted, when they wanted. It allowed people to move out of small dwellings in the city to larger homes in the suburbs. It improved and expanded the highway systems throughout our nation. And it gave women the freedom to get out of the home and become the main consumer of the family. Women eventually gained the freedom to work outside the home and do anything that men can do. This picture is of a car dealership in 1936.